Hello guys and welcome to my channel. I'm Amanda and today we are here with a donut tutorial video and I'm going to teach you how I make my donuts. I do have plenty of donuts available to purchase on Etsy if you want to check that out, and I'm also going to leave a link in the description to this printable thing that you can get. Mine is a bit grotty and old to print out so that you can transfer it onto watercolour paper and do these yourself. I will be frequently doing little donuts and putting them online so that you can download them for free so that you can paint along with me. But we are going to do this one, I think, because it's the more classic donut, I believe. The things that you will need for this, other than the sheet, is a light box. You need the sheet, like this. Watercolour paper. I am using Fabriano Artistico Hot Press watercolour paper for this. This is 4x6 inches, a spray bottle, a pencil, and I'm going to use this Colorays lavender pencil just because I know that mine is going to be purple. A masking tape. I'm going to put this off so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Masking fluid. 2 jars of water. I have these 2 old coffee jars. Some kitchen roll. This is a massive roll of kitchen roll, but you only need a couple of pieces of it. I'm just going to use 2, I think, and fold them up. This is to blot your brush off when you don't want as much water on it. So I'm just going to fold it into a quarter, like that. Various watercolour brushes. I'm only going to be using 2 or 3 brushes, but one of the brushes that I will be using is an old one. I don't know where it went, oh dear. I'm using an old one for the masking fluid, to put the masking fluid sprinkles on. Very old, it's been used with masking fluid before, so it's very stiff and disgusting. I don't wash it, I just leave it like that. I'll probably chuck it out. It's a really cheap brush. The next brush that I'm going to use is either a number 8 or a number 10, depending on how I feel. I think I'll probably use the number 10 because it's more pointed. This number 8 is a little bit less pointed when it's wet, so I might use this one because it's easier to control. So a number 10 or a number 8 brush for bigger washes. Then I'm also going to use my number 5, and then for the super tiny details I will be using a number 1 sable round. It doesn't matter what brushes you use, just the sizes would be fine, and you could do everything with a number 6 if you wished to do that, or a number 5. You might also want to include some white designer's gouache. This is permanent white. You don't really need this, but if you want to add white highlights later, then this is a good idea. There is 2 different types of gouache for white. There's zinc and there's permanent or titanium white. The titanium white and the permanent white are good for highlights, and the zinc white is good to mix with other colours to make pastel colours. As for the watercolours, I have my Winsor & Newton palette here, and I have Winsor & Newton paints all along here at the bottom. Those are the paints that we're going to be using today. You can use any brand, you can use watercolour pencils if you wish, obviously a little bit different with watercolour pencils, but yes, obviously you need something to mix your paint on. I have this. I'm not going to show you how to mix, I'm guessing that you already know that, but I'm going to tell you what colours I am mixing together to get the colours that I'm going to be getting today. I have another palette here for mixing just in case. Rubber, preferably a kneaded eraser, but I don't like those. I can't get them to work. Tell me how to use them. They don't work for me. They just spread all the graphite around. Some washi tape or masking tape to tape down your watercolour piece before you start. So let's get going, shall we? Relatively in the centre, and we're just gonna trace it, and I'm pretty sure you guys know how to trace. Shouldn't have to tell you that. I have my donut paper traced over onto the watercolour paper, and I've got it washi taped down. Now there is another thing that you can use if you want to speed up the process, and that's a hairdryer, but I would recommend you not use that if you are going to tape it down, because the tape will come up. If you are going to use it, please use it on a colder setting and not as strong. I'm going to lightly erase some of my lines here because I did go a little bit hard. I'm going to get my yucky brush here, and I'm going to get some of this, and this is childproof, so it's really hard for me to open, and I'm just going to dip in here. You might want to get a better brush than what I've got, and I'm just going to put the masking fluid on the sprinkles. You can tell I'm nervous. Just go slow, take your time, one by one. And I did change the sprinkles a little bit while I was doing them, like I didn't put them exactly where the original picture was. And you can do the same, you can change the sprinkles if you want. I just made them a little bit more spaced out so that they're not together, because it's actually harder to watercolour sprinkles when they're really close together. So I'm just going to continue to do this for all the sprinkles. Okay, now that that's done, I'm going to leave this to dry, and then we're going to come back and do our first layer. Once that's dry, it should look a little more yellow, darker, and it should feel a little bit tacky. Can you hear that? We're going to wet our brush, and I'm going to use a convenience colour just because. I'm going to use my Permanent Mauve in here, and I'm just going to put some in there just to kind of have it there. Wash out my brush in one of the jars of water and then the other to make sure it's extra clean. I'm also going to add a little bit of this cerulean blue in there as well, just to give it a little bit of a kick. Not too much though. And you want to get a little bit of this, just keep adding to it until you get the consistency and the colour that you want. So I think that that's a little bit too dark. I'm actually going to add a little bit of this permanent, oh no, that's is that Permanent Rose? I don't know. No, that's Quinacridone Magenta, I think. Yeah. You want it kind of watery at this stage. We are just doing the first initial wash, so it's kind of watery. And I'm just going to add this to here. Now, you want to think about your light source. Where's your light coming from for this donut? Donuts are rounded, and they're also raised in the middle, and they kind of stoop down as they go round, and the same in the middle, they stoop down a little bit. So we want to make sure that we get the darkest points in the middle and on the outside. So I'm going to start at the outside, and I'm just going to put a light wash of this colour here and bring it all the way around. Like this. Don't be scared to go over it a couple of times. You don't have to though. I just like to make sure that all the edges are covered. And because this is hot press paper, it's going to dry relatively fast, so you want to get it on there, on the bits that you want fast. And then we're going to do the middle as well. It's going to be darker at this side and a lot more pigment here and darker here too. So make sure you get that in. And then just finish it off around the edge there. Then you want to dry off your brush really quickly, dab it off a little bit so that it's a little bit wet but not too much, and you're going to drag the colour from the white part down to, or up rather, to the colour, and drag that down into the middle, leaving the middle relatively light. While it's still wet, I kind of want to put more colour into there. It's very, very light just now, so I'm going to add a little bit more of this mixture that I've just created. And I'm going to charge in some colour at the bottom where the shadows would be. So the shadows would be right here. And I'm just going to drag that colour back up here, smooth it out a little bit. Then we are going to wait for this to fully dry. Okay, once that's fully dry, this is when I like to go in with a little bit more detail off the bat so that I can fix any mistakes that I made or any bits that I missed. So I go in with my number 5. Again, it can be any brush, it could be even the number 10, but just go lightly and just go around the edges, the exact edge that I want the icing to stop. I've went over here a little bit from where I was going to stop the icing and start the donut, but that's okay. You can just say that the guy that made the donut just went over a little bit. He was a little bit overexcited about the amount of icing that he was putting on the donut. Wet this brush, clean it off and drag the colour up into the middle so that it's a smooth edge. Then we're going to add in more to the middle. Again, I've went over slightly, so I'm just going to neaten this up a little bit. Put more at the bottom here. Get your wet brush again and blend it out. Now you can choose to charge a little bit extra colour. Each layer I tend to go a little bit lighter, or brighter rather, in colour, so I'm going to add a little bit more of this mixture. Wet your brush again and just drag that colour in. Make it a little bit more sporadic. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's a donut, it's handmade. Sorry about the noises, guys. Okay, so we're going to let that dry again. Once that's dry, we are going to add another layer, and that's basically what this is just waiting for it to dry, adding another layer, waiting for it to dry, adding another layer again. So I'm just going to add a little bit more paint to this. I really need to refill this paint, whatever it is. So it's starting to get a little bit more pinky, which I don't want, so I'm just going to add a little bit more blue. I would love to hear your feedback on how I'm doing with this whole tutorial thing. I have no idea if I'm doing very good or not. It's really hard. But anyway, I'm gonna wet my brush and just tap it off on the side. And I'm gonna bring down the colour a little bit. And then I'm going to add in a little bit more down here. Just let that mingle as it wishes. I'm using a granulating pigment as well, so even though this is on hot press paper, it will give it a little bit of texture. And I like to put like extra little lines in places as well, just to add a little difference. This is looking a little bit too hard here, so I'm just going to soften that up a little bit. And you can also do this with a really soft brush just to make sure that that highlight is nice. And then, you guessed it, we are going to let this dry again. After it's dry again, you could leave it at this stage and just go on to the next stage if you wanted to. I'm going to add one more layer in, one or two, just to see if we can get this a little bit darker, a little bit more vibrant. So I'm going to add in some more paint. So we're gonna wet this brush again. I dabbed it a little bit, but you don't have to dab it at all. Just gonna tease it out. Tease it out. And when I get to here, because there's a lot more pigment, I'm gonna wash my brush again. And you can turn your paper around if it's on a board or something like that, so that you can get a better angle to do this with. Right. I've lost a little bit more of that white than I wanted to, so I'm just going to pick it up a little bit, just dabbed off my brush there to dry it off. And then we are going to pull out this area. So I think that you get the gist of how to do this part. So we're going to next move on to the part where you take off the masking fluid. Okay, I actually added another layer and it actually looks a little bit darker in real life than it does on the camera. I will take pictures at the end so you can see how dark it is. Sorry about that, I should probably lower the brightness of my camera. But you want to make sure that this is completely dry, like completely dry before you do this. And your hands are clean, or you can use a rubber as well for this. So I'm going to use the rubber because I hate touching the stuff with my hands, it actually gives me the creeps. So I'm going to just rub off lightly the masking fluid, and we're going to do the donut thing. Now, I usually use a dark brown colour. I think this is burnt sienna. I'm going to put that in there, like that. If you just have raw sienna, then that's fine as well. You can use a really light donut texture, but this is raw sienna. I'm going to put it in there just to give it a little bit of yellowness. And I like to put a touch of yellow in it too, so I'm going to use New Gamboge because it's my favourite yellow. Just a little bit. Actually, that's too much. Put in more burnt sienna, just until you get the kind of doughy feel. I'm using my number 10 to mix this, but I will be using my number 5 to do the actual painting of it. So I'm going to get my number 5 and I'm going to wet that, and I'm going to pick up some of this colour. I'm going to roll it as well just to get a finer point. And then we're going to do the donut itself. could go and put more burnt sienna in there, burnt umber maybe, make it a little bit darker, and charge in some of that colour, just put it in random spots so it looks like it's baked unevenly, or fried unevenly rather. Just gives it more of a realistic feel. I usually make it even more darker in the middle. So that was just burnt umber. Just high shadows like that. Put that in some places on the outside as well, just to make it a little bit more cohesive. And there you have the donut portion, and you can add layers to that, but I'm just going to leave it like that. I think it's perfect like that. We're going to do the sprinkles now. So for this donut in particular, I want to use pink and blue. I was going to leave some white, but I think I'm just going to do them all pink and blue because it's easier to do it that way. You just choose a colour, so we're going to choose Madder Lake from the Schmink brand. Schmink is a little bit more opaque, but again you can use whatever colour you want. But we're going to use this, and we're just going to mix it over here. Not that you can see, but it's over here in this already pink area. And I'm just going to get that consistency going, and then pick, I just pushed my glasses up and I've not even got my glasses on, and then just pick a sprinkle and just paint it that colour. You just want one consistent sprinkle. There's no point in trying to get highlights with this because you're just going to end up getting really frustrated because it's really hard to leave white in that small of an area. I mean, you can do it, but I just prefer to cover it. Blue that I'm going to use is this one, the cerulean blue again, and I'm just going to pop that on top of my blues here. Questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I would love to hear your questions. If you're confused about anything or whatever, just ask me and I'll be sure to try and answer them as best as possible. I'll also leave links to all the products that I use in the description below. They are affiliated links, but it doesn't cost you any more money. I just get a small commission from the sale, and it helps me to be able to buy new products to review for you guys, or new equipment that might be dying, like my PC right now. So it really helps a bunch. If you are going to use any of the, if you're going to buy any of the products, then please consider using my links. Even if you're not going to buy the products and you want to support me, but you're going to buy something else on Jackson's Art or Amazon, then clicking my link and buying whatever you want also gives me a small commission. We're not finished yet. It's still looking a little bit flat, so once that's dry, we're gonna add a little bit more details. For this part, I'm going to use a little bit of blue, indigo blue. Indigo blue is a really strong colour, so you only want a touch. I literally just poked that twice. I'm gonna add that in here. Look how strong that is. So I'm gonna add that in there. Okay, a little bit more than that. A little bit more. And this is what I'm going to use for the shadow. So that's the Permanent Mauve, Quinacridone Magenta, the Cerulean Blue and the Indigo Blue mixed together to create this darker purpley colour. And this is what I'm going to use for the shadows, but we want to water it down a little bit, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. And then, remembering where our shadows were coming from, or our light source, so the light source is coming from here, from the left hand, top left, so we're going to do the bottom right for the shadows. And you just basically want to add the tiniest little bit of this colour, kind of like a little C, like a C on its side, underneath here to create the shadow of the sprinkles, so that it's like 3D, it's not just stuck inside it. And there we go, it just gives it a little bit of a 3D look. And once that's dry, you can either add another layer of shadow or you can go straight on to the whites. Now, there is a couple of ways you can do this. You don't have to do highlights, you could leave it like this and it looks great. You could add some gouache to it. You could use gel pen. I personally don't like the look of gel pen, although this one's a good one. It's hybrid gel, so it kind of blends in to the actual colour eventually. It will soak in to the colour of the behind it, so it will just give it a little bit of a highlight. So I'll just do that on a couple just so you can see once that dries. Or you can use a coloured pencil. I like this one. It is a Stabilo aquarellable pencil, and it gives it more of a subtle highlight. Again, you could use Polychromos, you could use Crayola even, you could use Spectrum Noir, any white coloured pencil that you have. This is the Colorase. I don't think I have a Prismacolor on me, or a Polychromos for that matter, but I do have the Derwent watercolour pencils in Chinese white, and I also have the Caran d'Ache Luminance. All of these will give different effects. could even do the shadows with coloured pencil as well to bring it out a little bit more if you wished. Of course my battery ran out just as we were ending this, but yeah, so you just water the highlights down if you want, or just leave them. Like I said, it's up to you. Doesn't really matter. Highlights are up to you. You could even add more in this area if you wanted to, but I would just leave it if I were you. Make sure you wash out your brush though. You should probably do the same coloured sprinkles at a time, and then wash out your brush afterwards so that you don't transfer any of the colour that you've picked up to the other sprinkles. Or just be like me and do whatever the hell you want. There we go. That's that done. And again, like I said, you could use a coloured pencil for your highlights if you want. This is Perusian blue. You can just, for your shadows, sorry, you could just put a little bit of colour with coloured pencil or watercolour pencil, whatever you want, just to give it a little bit of a darker shadow. There we go. It is a donut with 3D sprinkles. And obviously you can sign it once it's all dry and perfectly done. You can release it from its washi tape. You can reuse the washi tape for something else, or you can't because I just ripped it. If you're like me. Obviously there's no background. You could be a bit more careful about where you place your washi tape and do a background. But just be careful when you tear it off. If it is giving you bother and feels like it's ripping, then you can use a heat tool or a hairdryer to loosen the washi tape first before you take it off. There we have it. There is our watercolour donut. If you participate in this tutorial, then please tag me on Instagram or Twitter to show me what you've done. The links will be in the description below, and I'm really happy that you decided to take this sort of tutorial class thing. I don't know, it's my first one and it feels weird, but I'm happy that I did it. I hope that you guys are too, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.